Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Maren and I am the aspiring author of what will soon be a post-apocalyptic dystopian trilogy entitled Fall of Men. And right now I am in an interesting situation which I wanted to talk about today. So anyone who is trying to become a published author in either self-publishing or traditional publishing, you invariably come to a point where you have to decide, what do you actually want to do? Do you want to try to go for trad publishing, or do you want to do a self-publishing? And I thought that I might be able to have something interesting to offer, interesting to say about this, as I'm someone who I'm very ambivalent about the decision either way. I found that a lot of people seem to be pretty dead set one way or the other. Like they have always known their entire life that they wanted to be traditionally published. They wanted to be published by Penguin Random House or Bloomsbury or something. And then there's other people who are like, I have no interest whatsoever in being traditionally published. I only want to do self-publishing. And I initially thought that I was part of the self-publishing camp. You know, from what little I knew about the publishing industry, at first I was like, oh yeah, self-publishing for sure. Why would I want anyone else's hands on my story? And as I went on learning, watching people's videos about either self-publishing or trad publishing, really thinking about it a lot, I have become a lot less certain about which path I want to go down. And I thought it would be worthwhile for me to make a video about this because I don't see a lot of people kind of like grappling with the choice. There's a lot of videos around that are like the pros and cons of each, but like the creator is like 100% one way or the other, like most of the time. Maybe there are people who have done more hybrid things that I just haven't found their videos like talking about the pros and cons as much. But I think that this is a case where there are tremendous pros and cons to both choices. And so that makes it really difficult for me to figure out what I want to do. And so before I sort of get into where I'm at with my process and what I've decided to do, I just wanted to talk a little bit about like my sort of internal debate about this topic, because I don't know, maybe it'll be useful to someone else, because I think that I'm probably not alone in feeling pretty ambivalent about the choice either way, because the reality is it's a gamble. No matter which choice you make with your story, it is a gamble, and you don't know which is going to bring you the most success. Whatever success means for you is going to be different, and everybody's goals when it comes to which path they pick are very different. And I think it's really hard often to figure out like what actually do we want? What actually is the thing that makes the most sense for us? And that's still something I'm trying to work out. So if I kind of roll back the clock a little bit to when I first started writing this book, I had some conversations. I'd watched some YouTube videos. I really started watching AuthorTube through watching Abby Emmons, who is like a very staunch self-publishing proponent. And I felt pretty confident at that time that I was going to want to self-publish. And you know, one of the things that people always say, there's a few things that people always say about self-publishing as an advantage over traditional publishing. One of them is control, which is true. If you self-publish, you are going to have complete control over your book. I do think that that is a double-edged sword though, because that means that you have to make decisions about everything that happens. And I think for some people that is awesome. And for other people, that is terrifying. And that feels like a lot of pressure. When you become your own publisher, there's so many things you need to know and you need to do right. Otherwise, you can like destroy your book's chances of success. You know, if you give it a stupid cover, you might not ever sell a copy. If you fail to get the right editor, you might spend $2,000 and there's still mistakes in your book that could have been spotted by somebody else. I think that there's like something cool about having a lot of control. Obviously, like the creative control is a big piece. And, you know, there's a lot of sort of differing opinions and differing experiences around like how much control the publisher is going to try to have over your work versus not. I do feel that it might be a little overblown what people say about traditional publishers just coming in and destroying your book and like making it their own and like, you know, removing all of your own uniqueness from it. I actually kind of don't think, I think that that's a little bit exaggerated just based off of certain anecdotal things. You know, I had asked Chris Fajardo, she did like a Q&A about her book Local Heavens, and I asked like, was there any pushback from your publisher about the like strong like anti-capitalist like anti-modernity themes that she was putting into her book? And she said no, like that wasn't an issue at all. And so, you know, that was one of the things that made me hesitate with traditional publishing with my book, is because it is a very much like a civilizational critique. There's some subversive topics within my book. When I learned that that might not actually be a problem in trad pub, I was like, oh, that was one of my reasons for wanting to do self-publishing, was to have that creative control. I am a little unclear still as yet, because I haven't had the experience. Would an agent want to change my book? Or if an agent wanted to change my book, would I just be like, no? And would they be okay with it? There's a lot of unknowns in either direction. So, so creative control is one of the things that people always talk about. And I do think that that's true. But I do think that people are exaggerating a little bit. I mean, and please tell me if I'm wrong. If you had an experience being traditionally published and your book just got like demolished by your publisher, I would love to know. Like I said, this video is me kind of like in my own debate about this. And so if I'm uninformed about something, I would really love to actually hear other people's perspectives, because even though I've ingested a lot of content from other people's perspectives and other people's points of view, there's still so many more perspectives to help shape my understanding of this gamble moving forward. But yeah, so the creative control is one of the big things. But the other thing that people always say, and this is something that I find really interesting actually now upon reflection, people are always like, well, publishers, they won't actually help you market your book. You're going to have to do all of the marketing yourself. So you might as well self-publish. And at first, I found this to be very persuasive in the direction of self-publishing. People always talk about the marketing as if that is like the biggest hurdle. From what I understand now, being a little bit more educated, the thing that actually makes me nervous is less marketing and more the actual production of this book and like getting it into readers' hands. That whole business thing of like actually like owning a business, essentially like a small business for your books, and going through Ingram Spark and Amazon and all of these different things, and like figuring out how to get it into libraries or Barnes and Noble or indie bookstores or whatever, like all of that extra business stuff, that's something that a traditional publisher would take care of. That's like beyond marketing. And that's not something that people really talk about as like a big con when it comes to self-publishing. Yeah, like it may be the case that a traditional publisher is not going to market my book as much as I would like them to, but they're going to help me edit it. They're going to help me format it. They're going to help me get a cover designer, and they're going to pay me for that. And they're going to get it into bookstores and all these places. And so I think that, there's a lot of focus on self-publishing. There's a lot of focus on like the marketing not being adequate in traditional publishing, as that making it so obvious to do self-publishing. But the way that I see it now that I understand it a little bit more, that's just one component of the process. And obviously it's a big one. It's a huge one. Marketing is not something that comes naturally to me, but at the same time, we tend to overemphasize how traditional publishers aren't doing enough to market people's books, and we underemphasize how there's still so much more work beyond marketing that a self-published author has to do in order to get their book in front of people. So I think that there's a little bit more nuance here where, with self-publishing, on the one hand, you have more creative control, but on the other hand, it's 100% up to you to get that book to people. Whereas with traditional publishing, you may have less control over certain things, but that part of the process of getting it in front of people is not 100% up to you. Like traditional publishers have connections, and it happens in the background, and it's not something that you as a person individually need to worry about. As I've spent more time thinking about this, so this is again potentially my ignorant sort of perspective. From what I understand, self-published authors are needing to pay for like Amazon ads, and they're having to do social media. They're having to do a bunch of, either paid or free promotions to be able to get their book in front of readers. From what I understand with traditional publishing is your books are going to be stocked in Barnes and Noble. Your books are going to be distributed to libraries. They're going to be potentially in airports. There's lots of like channels that traditional publishers have that indie authors don't have access to. And so, an indie author is going to have to do a lot more work on the front end to like just get people to be interested in their book. They're probably most likely going to have to do things online, which is fine. That's also something that's going to happen with traditional publishing as well. The onus of responsibility for those books actually being able to get to readers is 100% on you, the self-published author. And that includes having a physical book that is like of quality. So for me, it's like doing social media marketing and stuff like that. That's so negligible compared to a lot of the other things that go into making a book happen. And also just business. Like I suck at business. Actually, like I have experience partly running a small business, but the business side of it, like the taxes and things like that and all of that sort of bullshit, like I'm like genuinely really bad at that sort of stuff. I'm sure I could learn. I have experience, doing like the production side or like the shipping parts. Like there's certain aspects of it that could actually be pretty fun self-publishing, like as far as like, you know, having my own website and shipping orders and things like that. Like I think that could actually be really fun. But there's like business things that you would need to learn as a self-published author that feel really overwhelming to me. And I'm someone who has like a full-time job, and my work is like freelance and complicated. And sometimes I'm working 10 hours a day. Sometimes I'm traveling and I'm working 10 hours a day. I've already traveled 2 months of this year just for work. And so what concerns me is it's like, if I'm 100% responsible for getting this book out to readers, and even if I'm just using like Amazon or whatever, like there's a level of it where it's like, I don't know if I actually will have the time to do all of the things that I need to do to ensure its success, ensure that it actually gets to readers. So that's a big consideration. I'm definitely someone who aspires to be a writer and have like a writing career and all of these things, but I also don't want to put all my eggs in that basket. And I do think that there's certain realities with self-publishing where like there's a lot of people who say that it's like you need to have a lot of books written before you can be a successful self-published author. And I'm like really slow. It's taking me 2 years for this, like this one thing, it's not even done. Like and so there's a part of me that's like, from a practical perspective, I'm not certain I would be able to be a successful self-published author. Right now, I'm not really in a financial position to pay for the editing, pay for all of the things that would need to be done, pay for the cover, so that's something that I would have to save up for. Some of the things that I'm considering quite extremely are the time frame. One of the big cons of traditional publishing is that it takes forever. It takes a long time to get a literary agent. It takes a long time for your book to be sold to publishers. It takes a lot of time for it to be produced once it's been sold to publishers. That feels a little stressful to me. I do feel that this is something that I think every person is going to have to decide for themselves. What actually do you desire? And so this is where it becomes very complicated for me because I would really like to get this book out as soon as possible. I really love to have that control that self-publishing offers around when you release your book and when it gets out to readers. And like technically I could press publish today. Like I could have my book out today if I wanted to. And that's a cool thing that's available to me. But there are other factors to consider. And one of those factors is, do I want to risk publishing this book and not having it be able to reach readers just because I want to get it out quickly? And also, what kind of readers am I trying to access? I would be lying, and this is probably going to get me heat in the comments potentially, but I would be lying if I said I didn't want to access some of the connections that the traditional publishing industry has when it comes to the certain readers. Specifically, I am talking about access to the film industry, and I work in documentaries, and that's something that I'm trying to grow and I'm trying to continue doing. But I really would love more than anything, and I know a lot of people feel this way, but like they don't want to say it out loud. I would love more than anything to see this adapted to screen. I think it's a story that could be made cheaply. It's not a story that's like so fantastical and requires like so much like CGI and all this like expensive stuff that it couldn't be easily adapted to screen. And so there is a part of me where it's kind of like, yeah, I could self-publish it, but then like, what if no one sees it and it never pans out that there's ever any kind of connection to the film world, and there's no ability for it to get optioned because nobody knows about it, and I just can't figure out how to market it in a way that gets it to people. That's the thing with the marketing. And I know this is kind of a rambly thing, but that's the thing with the marketing is like, yes, everybody has to, on either side, you have to do the marketing, but like, you're still getting connections with traditional publishing. If my marketing sucks and I'm traditionally published, it's still getting readers. If my marketing sucks and I'm self-publishing, that book is dead. Like no one's going to see it. And when I think about my goals for this story, it is genuinely like, I don't even care if I'm like super successful or make $1 million or whatever. Like that's actually not what's important to me. What's important to me is that it's read. Like I want people to experience this story. That's what actually matters to me. When I think about the gamble between the time that it would take for me to get a traditional publishing deal, if I could ever even get one, versus the time that it would take for me to potentially be able to self-publish and promote my book to the degree where it's successful and gets the attention of I don't want to say Hollywood because it's like doesn't have to be Hollywood, but like some sort of thing within the film industry, that could be like the exact same amount of time. I actually just don't know. It's impossible to know. But, you know, one of the problems is that like once you self-publish, you can't really like, unless you get picked up by a traditional publisher, like one of those really rare instances, like with like Shy Girl, unless that happens, I'm unlikely to have this like smash hit book. It can happen. Of course it can happen. But I'm locking myself into a choice for the most part. Like I have to assume that like that, you know, flash in the pan kind of like rare unicorn experience of a traditional publisher coming and picking up your self-published book is going to happen to me. You can't make those assumptions. And so another one of the things that people always say that's a dig against TradPub and in favor of self-publishing is that there are no gatekeepers in self-publishing. And I really think that this is something that we should critically assess, because I am someone who believes that there are limits to the utility of democratization. And I don't mean that in like a horrible way. What I mean is right now, self-publishing is becoming absolutely flooded with AI slop because there are no gatekeepers. Lydia Foxglove did a video recently where she was explaining how like, sorry if I'm getting these statistics wrong, but it was like 100,000 books per month are published on KDP or something like that. And now, ever since the introduction of ChatGPT, there are 300,000. So there's like 200,000 books that are like presumably AI generated in some capacity. That is a lot of books to compete with within the self-publishing market. And, you know, there's only so much time in a human lifespan. And so, you know, that does like lead authors who are genuinely writing their books and aren't using AI to have to compete with a lot of AI. And that is very frustrating. And while there are some incredibly well-written self-published books, I feel hesitant to not try to query and to not try to get that feedback from the industry. I still would really like to have the experience of getting like rejected. I know that sounds kind of weird, but like it feels kind of weird for me to be like, no, I don't need to do that. I just want to self-publish. Like I have no interest. Because the reality is it's like, I do have interest. I do have interest in knowing what industry professionals think of my work. Even if they think like, oh yeah, I can never sell this. It's like, okay, that doesn't mean that I can't. But I guess I sort of want, to be humbled, I guess, a little bit. Like I want to have the experience of that rejection. I feel like it's a little bit like a battle scar that I want to have of like, you know, yeah, I queried 50 agents and I got 50 rejections and then still self-publish or something. Like I sort of just feel like I want to try that. And also you just never know. You really genuinely never know. But back to the gatekeepers. Another thing in another Lydia Foxglove video, I just was like binging her stuff yesterday, I think. She had said that, you know, there's something about when she was being traditionally published initially that it helped her realize like her writing was up to snuff to be a writer, to be an author, going through the traditional publishing route. It like encouraged her to get better at her craft. And then now that she's doing indie publishing, it's like, you know, she knows that she's capable of writing good books. I kind of still don't know if I am good enough for any of it. And so maybe that's just a bit of imposter syndrome on my part. And maybe I'll get rejected and it'll only discourage me. Or maybe I'll get rejected and I'll be like, okay, yeah, I knew that was going to be a reason to reject my book. That doesn't mean it's bad. You know, there's just a level of it where I feel like I kind of want to have the experience of the gatekeepers. I want to like dip my toes in and see how that feels. It doesn't, I understand why people go into I do understand why people go straight into self-publishing. I just think that I want to have the whole experience before I like swear it off. And also, you know, to be fair, to be frank, I could see myself being a hybrid author in a lot of different scenarios, because there are other books that I have in my mind, but that aren't this book. You know, I have more marketable books. I have like a women's fiction book that I could write. That actually could be really fun to write, but I want to get this one done first. But that one would be, I think it's more of a like women's fiction kind of like thriller. And that could be something that would be very marketable with traditional publishing, whereas this might not be, or it might be. You know, so here's another thing. When it comes to my book in particular, it might not be possible for me to get it traditionally published. And there's a few reasons for that. My book is a genre blend. And as far as the way that I can market it in a query letter, marketing it as a dystopian, while accurate, is a little inaccurate in certain ways, because the dystopia part of the story is mostly in books 2 and 3. And it starts, you get to experience the dystopia like really in like the middle of Act 3 of this book. So that makes it a little weird, a little bit of a weird book. It's a little bit of a weird sell. On top of that, right now, it's very long. It's 155,000 words at the moment. I am going through right now and I'm cutting it and I'm just seeing what I can hack. I'll keep a nice longer version for me if I do decide to self-publish. I'm not afraid of it being too long if I'm self-publishing. But if I want to query and try to get a literary agent, I do need to cut it down. So it's long. And also, I'm debuting with a trilogy, and that is not terribly attractive to a lot of people. However, it's not to say that it's not possible. Obviously, Pierce Brown, Red Rising was the first book of a trilogy. He was able to get a literary agent and a 3-book deal. That happens, but it's rare. And I can't control, whether or not the market is interested in my book. I do believe that my story has an audience. I think that I will be able to find that audience and that those people exist, but it might not be like a niche yet. It might not be something that people are actively looking for. I think that once they experienced it, they probably would be looking for it. But right now, it is a tricky sell to traditional publishers. So it would probably make more sense for me to self-publish it. That kind of all leads me to where I'm at now. So I do feel like I'm in a kind of a unique position. Obviously, like I said before, I'm very ambivalent about this entire process. I think that either way, I'm going to be compromising or sacrificing or choosing something that is unideal to me. I know that there is a potential third option, which is indie presses that do unagented submissions. That is something that I'm having a harder time figuring out, just from the standpoint that a lot of these presses, they're like only open for very short windows, and I just haven't been able to find one that is open. And then also, there's a problem of there's a lot of vanity presses that are kind of predatory. There's certain presses that sound really good, but then they're only YA. Lost Island Press is one where it's man, if they only did adult, that would actually be a really cool setup. I'd be down to not get an advance, but get 50% of royalties, and they make my book for me and they help market it for me. That sort of scenario would actually be quite perfect for me. So if anyone knows of a press that would be that sort of setup, but does adult and could be interested in post-apocalyptic dystopian trilogies with romance kind of things, like epic stories, that is kind of what I would be looking for in that. But I just don't know how to find it. I've done my research and I haven't really found anything that feels quite right. And so a lot of those presses do seem like I need to get an agent first. So what am I doing? What is my plan as of right this very now? So I'm in a unique situation right now where this is basically ready to go. What I'm doing right now is I am going through and I am mercilessly cutting from this book. And I am going to save a draft that has all the length in case if I do self-publish. I want to keep these things because I'm cutting out things where it's that's really nice, but I don't actually need it, and I'm sure I could be cutting more. But there's so many things where I'm I don't want to kill my darlings. I actually really don't, but I'm trying to. I really am earnestly trying to. But I'm trying to cut it down to 130,000 words. So that's a lot of words, right? That's a lot. And it's going to be difficult. I don't think I can go any lower than that. I actually really don't. And so already 130,000 words, that's on the really high end of what agents are looking for in a manuscript. So already that's a problem. Right now, I have book 1 done. So what people always recommend is if you're going to query, you should write a book while you're querying. And so my goal right now is I'm going to get a draft that I can query with of the first book. Once I start querying, which will hopefully actually be starting in June, that's the plan. Once I start querying, I'm going to start really earnestly on book 2. I already have it plotted out basically. I already have an outline going. I need to do more work on it, but I'm in a situation where it's regardless, I'm not going to publish this book until I've written book 2 and potentially also drafted book 3. That's because multiple reasons. One of them being that I really don't want people to read the trilogy and it feels like it's not all connected. This is a really complex story with a lot of different agendas and characters doing things. And so I want it to feel very cohesive. I'm very purposefully planting seeds in this book that won't come to fruition yet in the story. Like, I really want it to have that like epic long feel where, you know, the story is on this like grand scale. In order for me to not have any continuity issues, I do want to have written the majority of the trilogy before I publish the first book, just in case that there's something that I missed or there's something I need to hint to in book 1 to set up for book 2 or 3. So with that, like, I'm already in a sort of a like holding pattern when it comes to the first book. I don't want to publish it yet. If I self-publish it, it'll be like later this year after I've drafted, hopefully twice, book 2. Because I'm just going to be kind of sitting around and, you know, I'm obviously not going to be sitting around, I'm going to be writing a book, but like, because I'm not going to be doing anything with this book, I thought that it would be a good idea for me to try querying literary agents. But, you know, as I was saying before, it's like, I want to have the experience of querying. I want to go through the process of writing a query letter, writing a synopsis, figuring out how to pitch myself, really. Like, I feel like that's an important skill to learn, and also getting that industry feedback, even if it's only form rejections and I just get nothing, I get no good news back. I do feel like I want to have that experience, and it feels like something that I'll feel glad that I did it. And also, I've already compiled all the agents and I've already started doing that process. And so sunk cost fallacy is kind of happening for me right now. But genuinely, like right now, I am going to be writing book 2 no matter what. There's going to be a period of waiting around no matter what. I might as well have the book in agents, you know, slush piles and see what happens, you know, because you just never know. I really do believe that this is a story that if someone took a chance on it, it could be, I know I shouldn't say this, but it could be really successful. It could be successful. What I realize is it's like, I don't want to self-reject. Why would I do that? Like, why would I assume just like right out the gate that like there's no way that this could be traditionally published when maybe it could? I'm in a good position to be able to try traditionally publishing. And no matter what, if I have to fall back on self-publishing, that's fine. I'm okay with that. I'm really okay with that. I think, again, as I said before, like all of the cons to self-publishing, there are things that I could figure out. If I had to, I would do it. Like, it's not that I'm unwilling to do it, but I figure I might as well try for traditionally publishing while I'm in this unique circumstance and just see what happens. And again, people on Reddit have told me a million times that my book is basically dead on arrival. It's too long. It's a trilogy. It doesn't end, it's not a standalone with series potential. It's a trilogy. And so like, it might not be publishable traditionally, but it also could be. I could be the exception. Everyone wants to be the exception. I know that it sounds kind of naive for me to say that, but the truth is like, there are people who are always the exception. And I think I'm in a good position because it's like, either way, I'll be happy. Either way, I'll be happy. Either way, there are compromises. Either way, there are things that are not ideal. And I guess I just today wanted to talk a little bit about that, about like how it's just like not so simple as like one path is better than the other, or one path is like a guarantee of success or the other isn't. I think it's really, really personal, and it really depends on what you want and who you are. I can really only speak for myself because I can't speak for what other people really like desire. But for me, I'm nervous about being like a business owner when it comes to trying to sell my books. I'm not a very fast writer, so I won't have that many books to sell. Ideally, probably by the time if I do self-publish, I would have like a trilogy that I could rapid release is what my plan would be if I do self-publishing. But from there, I don't know. I don't know I don't know exactly what that path would look like. I don't think I'm going to be the kind of person who can write 40 books in a few years, or who just has a huge back catalog. I'm really not that fast of a writer. It takes me a long time to get through things. And so, if I can make this one series successful, then great. But you hear from people that it's like the only way to be successful as a self-published author is to have a ton of books. And it's like, ooh, I don't think I can write a ton of books, but maybe. But then, when it comes to TradPub, it just might not work. It just might not be possible. And so, I think it's quite likely that I'll end up self-publishing, but I figure why not shoot my shot with TradPub, given that I'm so ambivalent about it, given that it's going to be a lot of work and a lot of putting myself out of my comfort zone either way. It scares me to think of getting an agent and working with editors. It scares me to like having this book be the project of a bunch of other people. But there's also something about that sounds kind of cool. And so yeah, I just think what I wanted to sort of explore and ramble about today is how complicated this choice is. It's really not simple. And I don't think that people are trying to make it seem like it's simple when they're talking about it. But I think sometimes we tend to do these sort of like pros and cons lists that are a little unnuanced around the real life experience of like what these things will look like and could look like. And I also want to be like transparent about what I'm doing with my process, because it might help other people to know that it's okay to like not know exactly what you want to do. I think traditional publishing produces bad books. I think self-publishing produces bad books, and I think they both produce beautiful, incredible masterpieces as well. So it's not about that. For me, it's really genuinely about like, what is the business side of this? What is the actual process of getting the book created? How much time am I going to be away from just writing? Those are the things that are on my mind as someone who does have a job that means that I don't get to just write all day long every day. And you know, maybe that would change one day, but for right now and for the foreseeable future, like I have a very fulfilling like other side of myself that is outside of my book writing career. And so everyone's choice is very, very unique. And I also think it's okay for people to change their mind. You know, I liked Madeline James. She did a few videos about how she was originally going to traditionally publish, and then she decided to self-publish because her life circumstances changed. And so I think it's like okay to also change our minds. And if we're like, man, I'm like so fucking sick of querying, or like, man, I'm so fucking sick of trying to market these self-published books, I want to try for traditional publishing. I think that we should be open to changing things based off of like what really works for us, not what we think we should be doing or what we wish that we could do or something like that. We can just be flexible with ourselves and our lives and have grace for whatever path we choose. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you guys have a wonderful day, and please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. I'm going to try to be more consistent on this channel. Happy writing. I believe in you. I believe in your project. I believe in whatever path you want to take is the right one for you. So just good luck figuring out what that is.